Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. So we're starting, yeah? We're starting with our afternoon session, 2 o'clock. Where are we? We are in Amsterdam, right? You think, but it's Zaandam, right? It's just across the canal. Anybody who is living or has lived in the Netherlands? Yeah? What is the most popular app on the phone in the Netherlands? One of the most popular apps. Think about where we are today. Buienradar. You would like to... so I'll explain what buienradar is. You've seen the weather today, right? You want to predict. When you go out in the Netherlands, you never know what type of weather it's going to be, right? So buienradar is one of the super simple. It would be incredibly popular. It wouldn't work in Spain. It wouldn't work in France. But it does work in the Netherlands, as you can imagine. The other thing, so you will tell at home, I knew exactly what type of weather it was. I thought you were going to a conference. But this is where we are, right? So you're in the middle of the beautiful Dutch weather. This is not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to lead you in the second workshop around delivery, and typically in the French e-commerce market. Anybody already has a presumption on what's happening in the French e-commerce market? Is it slow? Is it fast? Can I get your mic? Anybody already has an opinion? Is it the best? Is it the most advanced? You have an opinion on the French market already? Anybody?
I just know that it's a bit different than any other. So, well, in terms of FMCG market, I know it is a bit different than any other market in Europe, especially in drive-in and so on. Mm-hmm. And I would love to understand why it is so drive-in, drive-out. I don't know how you call it in France, when you collect the orders from the retailers. So it's very popular, but I don't understand why it is like that. Is it because of the last mile delivery is not so in performance, or is it because there's something like magical about drive-in? So.
Yeah, great. I think we can work on that in the presentation. And I have two experts, obviously, talking about the French market to us today. So please welcome Benoit Huc. He's sitting here in the middle. 6 years already with the company in the sales and marketing department. So exactly knowing what the clients need. And Florian Leclerc. We actually figured out that we were working together in the past. I was the CEO of Cyclion, and he was trying to pull a leg. Oh no, that was not. He was trying to find a solution. In those days, it was a little bit harder, in the Colissimo days, to find a solution, to work with a fast developing partner, not really knowing what to do. So we will talk about that as well today. A few things we will touch upon as well. You know, what anybody sort of from the introduction by PwC or Rakuten this morning? I think we saw a really great development already there, right? From the client development as well. Higher demand, faster, better, easier to integrate. So we're going to learn from the two gentlemen how Colissimo is dealing with that. And we will definitely touch on your question as well. So, guys, if you could briefly introduce yourself and then hit it off, Benoit.
Let you start.
Okay, thanks, Benoit. So, Florian Leclerc, I'm working for Colissimo in the international sales division, working and covering different countries as north of Europe with UK, Belgium, Netherlands, Nordics, but as well working on the China's flow with Hong Kong. And so we are developing all this cross-border activity for the previous years, and we have a very good trend, and we want to share with you some data today.
Thank you, Florian. Benoit.
Thank you, Florian. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Benoit Huc. I'm a Sales and Marketing Director at Colissimo. I've been working for the company for 6 years, as you said, as you mentioned. So we start by focusing on the French market, as you understood. So a few figures about Colissimo. Who is Colissimo? Maybe not everyone knows perfectly well Colissimo for sure. So we have a focus on 2020 as well, which is a big change in the market. And to start with, I want to emphasize a little bit about Colissimo. We are the number one in terms of parcel delivery service in France. We are delivering over 500 million parcels every year. It's roughly half of the market. And we are doing internationally business as well, and 20% of our business is growing very fast internationally, which is inbound and outbound. We have a strong relationship with all the European markets, of course, and with Asia as well, as Florian mentioned, is one of the main players. And we are as well experiences a big growth these past 2 years, like many players in the sector, in the industry. Last year we faced a big challenge of 30% increase, and at the end of the year we have to deal, like in November, December, with 70% increase, and we made it because at the end of the year, despite the big growth, we have a very good rate, satisfactory rate amongst our clients, with an NPS of 52. We measure it at the end of the year, the period which is the most difficult for us to do our business, and the clients were happy to see that the clients were very happy with what we have done achieved in 2020. In 2021, we are still a good trend of development. We are doing a growth of 25% until now, and since it can be the case in many other geographies and countries in Europe, since we are still reopening the grocery stores and the shops, obviously we are declining a little bit. The growth is less intense, less strong, but it's still relative, and we are still wondering what will be the new standard. I think we are all in mind. Before the pandemic, for instance, we were delivering 1.3 million parcels per year. We went to up to 2.5 during the pandemic, and now we are going to stabilize. We don't know the figure yet, in between probably 1.7 and 2 million, which is the big question for everyone. So it was a bit difficult to organize this peak period, which is very important for all e-merchants for sure, and we make some assumption. Hopefully we hope we'll be right at the end of the year with a good satisfactory rate and good NPS. We see it, and probably we will be facing like adjustment, which is quite difficult at the moment, because as you know, we are facing as well shortage of supplies from China in particular. Some our clients don't know right now what will be the storage, the inventory by the end of the year, which is a bit tricky for us to organize. So the question was, what is the market, the French market within the European one? We spent the last decade to catch up with the rest of Europe. And before the pandemic, we were the third market in terms of e-commerce after the UK and Germany. And thanks to the jump, we are now the second biggest e-commerce market in Europe. And you can see the difference between the average growth in Europe during 2020, which is around 9-10%. And in France, it was nearly 32%, a big jump in e-commerce consumptions. And we made a jump of 3.3% regarding the part of the e-commerce amongst the whole retail, which is a big jump. So why that? What is the trend? What we are facing this big growth during the past 18 months is because we have more consumers, for sure, and we have 1.5 million more consumers in France who started to use the online business, the online platform, to do their shopping, their purchase, first of all, and they buy more. It's repeat business, and there are more to buy. So all combined, we have a big growth of 32% compared to the 15 million more e-consumer throughout Europe. So it's 10%. It represents 10% in France. And the trend is, when you make a survey, and the French consumer, we keep with their new habits, and they find online very convenient for them for certain time of products, depending on the products they want to buy. And 70% of them say they will stick to the habit they took during the pandemic, which is a good news for the industry. And we will see in the future, in the near future, if they will keep to that promise. If you want to react, if you have some questions already or some reactions.
Yeah, maybe I have a question, because what struck me is that the French market is already the second market. Is that because of Brexit that you moved out the English, or is that really autonomous growth by the French e-commerce market?
It might be both, but mainly due to the pandemic and the fact that people have to organize themselves differently, and they have to switch online to purchase their belongings to the stuff, and I think is a recent phenomenon, and we can see a big accelerations independently from the Brexit for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Just on the Chinese and Asian sales and the volume you mentioned quickly earlier, do you notice that across the market has been impacted in the last few months? Is that's a market-wide impact? From China, yeah, to France, yeah.
So we are experiencing a big growth from China. Actually, yeah, it's becoming a big client at Colissimo, and Alibaba is having a big strategy of development in France and Spain. France and Spain are the both major countries in Europe. They want to invest, so they trying to have to implement new warehouses, even near Paris, and they want to implement new last mile solution as well. So I think it's a bit challenging for the rest of the market as well. It's a new strong competitor for sure, and it's a big opportunity as well because they are willing to stimulate the market at the same time.
Maybe because it's we see a number of trends playing into this, right? Sort of, I think that's what you're also alluding to, with regards to you see regulation, you see the shortage in shipping containers, we see a bit of sort of, I would say, hands-off approach towards China. You want to sort of keep them out a little bit more on any type of level with the tariffs in the US as well. Is that also something that you face with Rakuten at the moment? In terms of how do you deal with some of those stress factors that we see in the market from China internationally?
Yeah, I think we noticed the impact, particularly of the VAT change recently in e-commerce. But on top of that, the supply of product from China, it had really like plus 30% growth year on year. During the pandemic and prior to the pandemic, particularly in the French market. And this year, the supply constraints and the VAT change have seen a drop in that volume. I think we're in the middle of that initial phase where there's been a very steep and sharp decline, mainly around logistics and ensuring that supply lines are fixed and that actually we can put products on the ground from China in France.
Sure.
Our approach to it is to try and engage and have more fulfillment capacity for those sellers. Okay. Because we notice, particularly in France in particular, there's been a series of disruptions. You know, there were Hong Kong protests, COVID, Suez Canal, Brexit.
The perfect storm, as people would call it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe another question as well, sort of to connect it to the elements as well. Sort of, you mentioned this morning in your introduction for Rakuten, is also sort of, you're expanding, you're digital by nature, right? Sort of, you started off as a digital. These guys started off as the incumbent player, and you meet each other halfway. So do you see there a sort of a level of convergence? Do you see them really as a direct competitor, or would that be a partner? How would you see that from your perspective?
Well, they're another part of the value chain from merchant to consumer. Absolutely not a competitor at all. But someone that we would use to reach our end consumer.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks for that.
But it's perfectly true. There are shortages of supplies in June, for instance, and the sales in France didn't work that well in July for that reasons. Yeah, so let's see for the end of the year. So, what do you think French customers buy online, and especially in 2020? Do you have any idea?
So, anybody would like to make a wild guess? You know, France is known for what? People are always perfectly dressed and stuff. The good food. Is it the country of love, or is that the Italians? Huh? So what is the number one products, right? Or the number one and two products that you think would be in the e-commerce volumes in France?
I would say products.
Could you state your name and company as well?
Yes, sorry. Timothy Gourlet, Forestyle. We are in the north of France. We sell products in wood for the garden.
Okay.
To entertain the life in the garden. So I think, I don't know, but I think in France last year was people wanted to enjoy life at home because of pandemic, so I think everything related to be to feel comfortable at home, let's say.
Okay, so you had a good year. That's what you say. You had a good year with your business.
Yes.
Then. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Any other guesses? Paul, what do you think? Sort of just to wait for the mic.
Yeah, Paul Needham, CP research journalist. I guess it's all the obvious products, of course, but what would also interest me is what trends you saw in terms of food, groceries, wine, drinks, alcohol. You know, the weekly to what extent did the weekly shopping trip go online? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if you're in lockdown, do you start drinking more, right? Sort of that's, probably you are. But maybe, Benoit, sort of reveal the answers to us.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you guess right. When we are at home, you have to get equipment, high-tech equipment for sure, to carry on working for sure, entertainment as well. So all the physical cultural products as well come third, and you have the appliances, all sorts of appliances. It was a good guess, and the cliche we said, clothes and perfume. They were the case in 2020. Within 2021, it was a bit the case at the beginning of the year, less for high-tech equipment, because I think the French household were already equipped, but regarding the appliances and the cultural product, they sell a lot beginning of this year. It might be the same trend all over Europe, I guess.
Yeah, you saw that in quite a few of the countries, that the apparel and fashion, because you're working from home, and you don't need that many new shoes, or you just need the upper part of the body anyway that need to be dressed, right? So that is reduced as well.
So are French consumers willing to pay more for sustainable delivery, which is a good question. I would like to know what do you think about it? Everyone is a big trend, a normal trend to be more sustainable, but the consumer is ready to pay for that.
That's an interesting one, right? So if you say sort of, hey, do I like to pay more to be more green? Or can I incorporate it? Would you have an opinion on that one? Sort of, from a customer view, how do you deal with that?
So my name is Christian de Vries. I'm from SendCloud. We're the shipping platform. I don't think that people want to pay more for sustainable delivery. I think that people, so from a consumer point of view, they want suppliers to solve it and to make sure that they can buy a sustainable service, which is actually cheaper than a normal delivery. So if you're talking about out-of-home deliveries, for example, out-of-home is more sustainable, but it should at least be, let's say, half of the price of a home delivery in order to move people from home deliveries into the out-of-home.
Yeah. And partly, I think you addressed that with the PUDOs, right? So that people are moving a little bit more to that one as a delivery option. Any other opinions on this one? I know the sun hits on you. I'm sorry about that, but you know, you have to see that as sort of romantic that we're all here together in this beautiful greenhouse. And this is sort of talking about sustainability. You know, the greenhouse effect is actually working, right? It's a sort of this, you know, it's all about experience, right? So this is what we do today for you. So Benoit, this the next part of the.
Yes, absolutely. We are on the same page. Yes, it's a must-have. We have to work on it, which is normal, but at the same time, no one is really willing to pay for that. And we made a survey really lately to launch a new product, and we have to compare the consumer to rank different items. It was 5 of them, and they put the sustainability as the last one. Doesn't mean that we don't have to do and work on that subject, because it's a consumer worry, and we can see that when they can compare, of course, with the same price and the same quality, they would prefer the one carrier which has a sustainable approach, which is normal in 70% of the cases. And they do something for the planet as well as a consumer, because they're trying to group their orders. 71 of them, they are like worried about the fact that they're ordering a lot. And only when we see in France, only 1/3 of the consumer are ordering 3/4 of the whole online business, which is very concentrating. And I think these these biggest consumers are very aware of the planet and the sustainability. So we have to work on them, and they're trying to make it better by grouping their orders. And we see that even in a European scale, 70% of the shoppers are trusting the brand, which are having strong and real action on the environment. And we are working hard with you have a question, yeah?
Yeah, can I ask a question about the grouping deliveries, if that's okay? You say 71% of French consumers in your survey said they would like to, or they would want to group their deliveries, if possible, to reduce the number of deliveries. So the question is, does Colissimo offer such a solution, first of all? And perhaps more interestingly, from an operational point of view, how would you actually do that? How would you group different products, different packages coming from different retailers into your warehouse, let's say, and depots, and then going to a whole load of different end consumers?
So Colissimo is working on reusable packaging. We are going to launch like a label, and trying to work with many startups to to leverage a solution and to make sure that the market is switching to reusable packaging, first of all. And regarding the grouping, I think it's more our clients' business to do so, because we pick up the order they give to us. But it's a great preoccupation for them, and we work closely to regroup all the stocks in the same warehouse, which is possible when you have a brand, one website, which is more difficult when, as you know, when you have a marketplace and different stuff coming from different places. But we see this trend that is a great preoccupation for our clients as well. And the trend is accelerating since the pandemic, and we see that we are working closely to, for instance, reduce the amount of vacuum we are shipping to make sure that the parcel is the right size, you know. So we're working to optimize the size of the parcels as well, which is quite recent. Only a few of the clients, the biggest one, used to work on it, and now we see all the market switching to it. And the group is working as well, and we are very proud because we received from the Vigeo Eiris their number one rank for sustainability the last 2 years, in 2019 and 2020. And we are already carbon neutral since 2012. 9 years ago already we were neutral. So when you buy a Colissimo, you use a Colissimo, you're carbon neutral, first of all. And we are working hard because we are in the first electrical fleet in Europe with 36,000 electrical vehicles. So it's the first fleet in Europe, and we work hard to invest in that area as well. And we're trying to decarbonize the 22 bigger cities in Europe, and in France, sorry, and we make sure when we skip to the engagement by the end of 2025, which is a big promise to the market to decarbonize the 22 first cities in France. So we are very committed in that area, in that respect.
Okay.
Do you have reactions?
We have a question in the back. So we're working on our sort of natural air conditioning here, and just to keep you cool a little, so you create a bit of wind. Can you introduce yourself and the company?
Fernando Penteado, Teca, Spain. Do the customers differentiate sustainable delivery from a sustainable strategy for the company? So, like, they see that the sustainable delivery is an add value to the let's say sustainable value, or as part of the company's total sustainable policies.
And you're asking as well if that's an just keep it. Is it an extra service or as part of the total service? That's what you're asking. Okay. Hello?
It's part of the total service. Yeah.
And what did you really have to do to change that? Because, you know, investing in electric vehicles, training the people in a different mindset as well, engaging with the clients. How did you do that? We have to work the operational side, first of all. For instance, we switched to bulk transportation, so all the parcels are put in a bulk position in a truck, and we think since then we reduced the amount of trucks on the road by 30%, which is huge, for instance. And I spoke about last mile as well, and eco-design as well. When we're designing a new offering, we make sure that we work on that dimension as well. And we are working on a brand, on a label that our client can put online, and they can show to the clients that choosing that solution rather than the other one, they do something for the planet as well. And when we see that everything apart, the price and the quality, they would prefer to have a sustainable solution for their shipping. Okay, thanks. Other questions to Benoit? And then otherwise, I think Florian will take over.
Yeah.
From okay.
Thanks.
Just.
Thank you, Benoit. So, the idea was to share with you the trend on the French market. Benoit explained already that, and you know, we lived it with also in other countries. The pandemic had a direct impact on the activity, on the e-commerce activity, and we saw a big growth since the last year. We do have some key figures who can highlight this trend. For example, 91% of households already received at least one parcel in 2020. So it makes 9 households on 10 who received the parcel at home. And if we come back 5 years ago, we win 30 points if we compare directly. So it's very an important growth that we were expecting in 3-4 years, which happened in only 1 year. So it was very important to manage it and to support this growth. In the meantime, we can see that it is mainly focused and concentrated on specific households. 1 on 3, 33% of households receive 75% of the parcel. So we still see a trend with, I would say, huge consumers who ordered a lot online, but we see also new e-buyers with people who are not used to buy online, who are more used to go to shops, to go to the supermarket, and who, because the shops were closed at one stage, they had to adapt, find solution, and so they came on the online solution. So that's why we see the trend of the volume, who clearly directly evolve positively on a daily basis, because we now have to deal with this evolution of the e-commerce trend, which is now 13% of the retail, when it was 8 to 9 the year before. So it's clear growth that we can see in other countries, but it's very impacting in the French market. So you see it's 25 parcels per household, when it was 21 the year before. In the meantime, we see that it is positively impacted on both sides. On the ordering online market, with a plus 4%, 83% of households received the parcel with an online purchase. And we see also a dynamic on all the circular activity, circular economy, 32% of households, so it's a plus 5%. So it's also a clear trend that we need to manage. It's also linked with sustainability. We do have the private individuals who are more and more conscious and who are very sensitive on the fact to reuse existing products. And so the circular economic is more and more dynamic in France. Then we wanted also to share with you an interesting figures regarding the trend and the habits of the French consumers, the way they want to receive the parcel when they order online. Do you think there was some evolution if we compare with 2019 and 2020?
So, any sense could also be changed in your own delivery networks or your own customer behavior? Any guesses? Paul?
Shall I? Yeah. Okay, well, it's the obvious one, isn't it? I would assume that successful home deliveries went up massively because everybody was at home to accept the parcel. Therefore, your failure rate went down, I would assume. The more interesting question is, what was the trend with out of home?
Any other opinions? What did you see as the main trends and changes during COVID in the delivery activities? From your own shipments? Anybody? Changes here? Yeah?
Hi, my name is Lucas from #U from Berlin. On our side, for our shipments to France, what we see a lot is decentralization of where we are sending. So our shipments were very much focused on Ile-de-France, of course, but during the past year, we see a huge increase and stabilization across all other regions of France. So it seems like the more rural areas are also increasing the e-commerce presence.
So you felt sort of a catch-up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So people catching up in the rural areas versus the urban, where the e-com was a little bit more custom.
Exactly. Of course, Ile-de-France stays the main place, but we see all other states of France growing a bit stronger.
Nice, thanks. So, Florian, maybe, sort of, how have we moved in France during COVID? What did change?
Yeah, so I will show you directly the figures. What is really interesting is finally the figures remain stable and the same. We were used to get 83% of parcels delivered at home, and finally after the pandemic, it is the same. And so it was interesting to notice, as you said, we had a period where shops were closed. And so we saw as well that in our business, in our economic, some PUDO actors had to close their complete network. On our side, we had to manage it, but we stay open for a part of the network. And so at the end, we see that people were more delivered at home. And in the meantime, the speed of delivery in a PUDO points finally helps to get this same level of balance. We remain at 83% home delivery and 17% on PUDO points. Of course, being delivered at home when people were working home was very easy. We were reaching very high level of quality of delivery on the first attempt. Of course, it was more helpful, and the very large network and the fact to be able to deliver everywhere in France was a key to success in this very specific period.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we see 60% of people are doing on both home delivery, PUDO delivery. They choose both options. Again, it evolved. We see this PUDO trend, which is interesting. So people still prefer to be delivered at home, but they like choice. That's in France, we do like choice to be delivered sometimes on some sectors, on some products being delivered at home. For other ones, it PUDO points. And when they have the choice, it is easier to convert and to conclude the online purchase. Then the idea was to share with you also another trend that we do have in France and to make a focus on the return activity. Return is, of course, something essential according to your kind of products you sell. But as people are used to going shops, they also like to have the same kind of experience, to be able to try. If they buy a clothes, for example, to try it, to be able to change it, to return it, and so to do have the same that they can have in the shop and they can get at home by making an order online. So if we analyze deeper the different criteria of purchase, first one, when we go on a website in France, remain the delivery solution. Second one is the price, and the third one is a return strategy, the return policy that you propose online, that the web shop will propose online. Get a good, great, and strong return policy clearly helps to reassure the consumers and to convert them and to conclude positively the purchase online. And on the other side, we see that 56% of e-buyers say that the return service applied by e-merchants have dissuaded them from making a purchase. So I think that we are all aware about this importance, but it becomes more and more strategic in France to have a very dedicated return policy, very clear, where the consumer can have all the clear guideline on the website. And if we focus on the return service, when you order and you want to return a parcel, do you have any idea of the different options that the French consumer can use, and what would be the most favorite one for him? I don't know if you have any idea about that, on the different options to return a parcel. And I think that with your activity in Cyclone must talk to you.
Yeah, I would guess that most people, like I would see in the Netherlands, people still like to drop it off at a convenient location, probably nearby, on their way to work or in the commute. Mm-hmm. So I guess that would be, but I'm not sure whether that's much different in France, right? Anybody has other ideas? What would be the favorite way to return in France? With Colissimo, right? You're doing about 50% of the parcels, you said in the beginning, right? In the market. Okay. Any guesses? Okay. Well, Florian.
Okay. Well, I show you directly the first option that we do prefer in France when we want to return a parcel is to return it from home. Of course, it is easier, you don't need to move, and you prefer this option to return a parcel. Then you do have, as you said, the convenience stores, the post office, or the brands, the retailer shops. So those options are all listed, but the most expected one, when it is available, is the home return solutions.
Is it a swap type of thing? So you can actually you can give it actually back to the postal delivery guy in this situation, right?
So on the beginning, to return a parcel from home was clearly more dedicated for the express carriers who are able to come to shops, but also able to come to a private individual place and collect the parcels. But we did on our side, what we did is to also use our existing network, or the postmen coming every day in every street, to also collect the parcel directly from the letterbox. So it was something quite innovative on the market to propose to really ease the return for the consumer, make things very simple and easy. So it was the last point, the last focus that we had on our side. I don't know if you have any question regarding the trends of the market, regarding the solutions.
Did we answer your question from the beginning, sir? More or less, right? So why are the French different than anybody else? Yeah, we will never know, right? Sort of. But with regards to deliveries, I think I learned quite a bit actually. Sort of. I didn't realize that the French market, the e-com market, is already the second biggest market. You would expect that the Germans and the UK would be sort of arm wrestling on that one, but actually you caught up. I think you showed us that was also realized by the trigger event of COVID, right? There was this latent demand, right? All of a sudden emerging, due to the lockdown situation that has accelerated that development. I can imagine that had put a lot of pressure on your network, on recruiting people, on the technology, on the warehousing in order to accommodate all of that. And I think you showed us as well, there's some innovations, some driven from a pragmatic view, right? Which you said from the returns business, that actually, when you think about it, it starts to make sense. It's probably the most logic way to return it. And you managed probably as an incumbent, which you have, a little bit slower, and you have this density of the network. This is a big weight on top of you. You actually make that a little bit lighter, right? So you made that possible to actually show that you can optimize that network. Any other questions from the audience before we get to close? We have a few more minutes. Yeah?
Just one question to the delivery options. You haven't mentioned any...
Can you mention your company as well?
Yeah, I'm Adin Anagic, GLS.
Cool.
You haven't mentioned any parcel lockers yet, so is it not an option for the French consumer, or is it an option in future?
Good question, thanks.
It's not a big trend in France right now. That doesn't mean that we don't work on it. We have implemented more than 300 lockers throughout France, and we continue that trend. So we are observing that trend, and we make sure we catch up with the market. But it's not a big trend nowadays, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any final questions, remark with regards to the French market? There you go.
Hello, my name is Franchek, and I'm from Kiabi, French fashion company. I have a question about customer promise, because we saw a big increase of volumes. What was the plan on Colissimo side, how to handle the customer promise against the big growth and the same, keeping the same lead times, etc.? And what do you think to do in future in order to transform maybe some indicative delivery times to promise delivery dates or commitment on a specific date for each zone?
So small question around hey, how did you deal with the massive increase, right, in a very short time?
Yeah, we are very proud because the carriers did a good job and they were very engaged. And the thing is that 80% of their deliverers, of the carriers, are part of the company, which is they are very loyal to the company, very engaged, which we one answer for that. And the second one might be that we are a bit lucky because we launched a new investment plan like 5 years ago, and we get ready. We have 5 new platforms, and we get ready to handle with that growth. And it came quicker than expected. We expected that growth by the end of 2025, and it came in, as you know, last year. So we get ready for that reason. But that means that we, like most of us, in crisis on a daily basis to face new figures, new growth, and we have to regulate with the big clients as well. So we have a multi-day points with them to figure out what we need their forecast for the next week, the next years, and we're trying to make a regulation to allow all the market to work at the same time. So we cap a little bit the biggest one and allow the middle market to do its own business. Is everyone at the end of the year, of the day, everyone is happy with that. So it's a lot of planning. We're a bit lucky because of the investment, and I think the engagement of all of the employees might be the answer. Yeah. And for the second question, we are working on it because we want to have a next day delivery as well. So we want to work on an opposition between next day delivery or the following day delivery on the promise, and we want to realize the promise as soon as we can handle with it, and make sure that the e-merchant, when he said that the product will be delivered at a certain date, and we speak more about date than about speed, we make sure that you keep to that engagement. It's a question of date, it's not a question of speed, because the consumer wants a result. He wants to know at what time, what day the product will come home.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. I think it's also an important addition to the service. We have a final question. So, sir.
Yeah, hello, I'm Volker Ehlösser from Ventano, and we started selling to France, and one thing which is very interesting is what is the average lead time a French consumer is used to from French online shops and of course from Colissimo as a delivering company?
So the expectation level, if somebody orders, how long it can take before it actually being delivered, right?
We know that in that respect, France is a bit lagging behind the other countries in Europe because most of the standard in Europe is more next day delivery. We have an issue of dimension as well in France because all the territory is not easy to reach. If I speaking about Corsica, the Alps, or some regions like this, is more difficult to reach on the following day at a reasonable cost. I mean, you know. So what is one point? But the other one is we're still enjoying. We are 40-hour promise, and you can see we are enjoying a growth of 25%. So we are still in the market. And we have a bit above the average of the market, so there is still room for 2 days delivery. But we know the market is shipping towards next day delivering. This is the reason why we are working on it to be able to promise to have a next day delivery promise as well. So the market is shifting. There is a demand for that, and we are doing it already for the big clients, the biggest one for Amazon as well. We have solutions with a good quality of service of 98%, and it's something we have to widespread to the rest of the market and the middle market as well. And it's
So you wanna know, is that the 48-hour or 72-hour expectation, right? More or less. And I think not what Colissimo can do, but what people are usually used to in France. Yeah.
The split is 1/3 is next day delivery in France, and 2/3 is still after the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for clarifying, because it's also, you know, what's the total market demand, not necessarily what your capabilities are. So thanks for that. Thanks for that question. To wrap it up, we learned a few things about the peculiarities of the French market. You know, I was a client once of also Colissimo, and also in these throughput times and the integration on technology, there was a little bit more cumbersome than it is today. And I think you're putting it exactly right. Sort of, hey, we made these strides and we could advance on those investments as well in order to be with the same workforce to be more efficient. So I think that's great for closing off. A couple of remarks before we move to the next session. Thanks all for the super engagement that you had, despite these, I would say, exotic circumstances in the middle of the fall, but there we go. Don't forget to put a vote out in the app. You can vote on the different type of awards. Your vote counts. The winner takes all, right? So be in there. It's a fun exercise. How do you reward? If you don't know for sure what the company is doing, visit them at the stand or try to clarify that later on. It will be much appreciated, and the award ceremony will be tomorrow. We will run for the next session in about 10 minutes. John will be taking over. I will be seeing you back at 4 o'clock and at 6. And have an enjoyable show for the rest of the 2 days. Learn as much as you can, share as much as you can. Thank you very much for today, and thanks to these two gentlemen for entertaining us today.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.